So what we're going to do now is we're going to go and program these two guys here. Because when you receive your BlueMicro, if they're already pre-assembled, they have already been pre-programmed with a very basic ErgoTravel firmware. So what we can do is, the first thing we need to do is to be able to test whether the keyboard works or not. So when you first install in and it's all set, so I'm going to just take one and I'm going to first turn it on. So I'm going to just go half and half here so that you actually see what I'm doing. Okay, so let's just go into this here. So you can see this is on Windows 10. I've got, oops, let me just move this here. Windows 10, I've got my keyboard connected. This is the one that I'm using. I've got a spare one at the back, which is the Dell. This is the mouse I'm using, so this is all Bluetooth. Now, what I need to do is turn this on, and then, so I'm going to turn it on, and then add a Bluetooth device. Yes, Bluetooth, and now I should be coming in with ErgoTravel BLE. That's it. So I'm going to go connect. It's connected, done. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to start just a plain notepad. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you, okay, what do I have on the keyboard here? So, I've got very, very simple, just to test. 1, 2, so, whoops. Let's go backspace on everything. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, that's weird. Let's keep going. So every key's got something that's either a number or a letter. So that it makes you verify very quickly whether your keyboard works or if it doesn't. So this way, like, it's not hidden behind a layer or anywhere like that. So we know it works. So let's just close that. Won't save. So now we see it's connected, ErgoTravel BLE, and it's just one side. So now I'm going to go and turn it off. And it's just going to remain connected. Now it goes to pair because it lost its connection. Now let's go and do the other half. I've got this other half. Let's turn it on. Let's add a Bluetooth device. Bluetooth. Now the same name should come up because it's essentially the same firmware that's programmed in the BlueMicro. Done. And I should have minimized that notepad, but that's notepad. Now let's flip it around. My other half. 1, 2, 3. Keep going. So I can see very clearly that every key works properly. So that means that from a keyboard point of view, the soldering that I did worked, and there's good connection with my BlueMicro. So again, I'm going to close. Maybe I'll just minimize it. I've got 2 ErgoTravel, one that's essentially paired, the other one's not paired. Now, what's happening is each of these have the same firmware called ErgoTravel BLE. We're going to change that. So I'm going to turn it off, and then my connected should go to paired. So now, because I'm going to be changing how this is programmed, I'm going to essentially remove both of them. Remove. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with my serial adapter. So now, because here on this ErgoTravel I do not have my serial connector right here, what I have to do is go right in here in the middle. So I'm going to be doing something similar to what we just did, except I'm going to go with the 3 lines, and I'm going to go without the jumper. So what I said earlier is my black they're not twisted. Now, I'm going to have to go, whenever I turn this on, I'm going to want to program with this. So here's my firmware. And I'm going to go and introduce you to the firmware. So what I've got here is I've got the firmware. The firmware.ino is just a simple file that actually does not have any code in it. As you can see here, there's no code at all. The actual firmware resides in all these other files that I see all the tabs at the top. Now, if you look very carefully, there is a keymap.h. Now, this has a few little things. That keymap.cpp, this is where the actual keymap is defined. Now, you will see I have either if the keyboard is a master, and I've got a function to set up the keymap. If the keyboard is left, and this is where is going to be my left side, and you can see very clearly escape keyword and then a few special characters there. And then I've got again set up keymap for the different layers. And then I've got my right side where I've got my other half, which is like of keyword, well, the EUIOP, well, it's right on this side where I have my other layers right there. Now, if you look very carefully, I've got a mapping of the layers for the different activations right down here. Now, this is where we can map some other type of activations. For example, tap, hold, and so on. Now, so what you're going to want to edit for your own keymap is the keymap.cpp. Now, when you have a keyboard, what you will see here is right there you've got left, right, master. So let me just kind of show you here. Whenever we're master, if you remember, when we go in our keymap, we're on master. On top, we only have this very, very funny keymap where we've got QWERTY with the numbers, and every key's got an actual key assigned to it. So there's nothing that's no keys has been a layer that's like hidden where you don't know where it is. So this is useful for testing, but it's not of any use for actual use. What we actually want to use for actual use is our left and our right. So when we go back to our keyboard config, this is where we want to define either a left or a right. Now, left, right. So let's take our left keyboard first, our left half, and let me just switch here, so flashing. So let's take our left half, and I'm going to have this. So what do we do here? So let's just first test if it's going to compile. So when you go in Arduino, that little checkbox here is the compile, and I'm going to just stretch that window at the bottom there so you can see the compilation process. So the first time you compile, whenever you load it up, it takes a while. And what you will see is at the bottom, it's going to have and I'm just, let me hide this so you can see it. So I'm going to remove just the work screen here. You will see that it's going to end up with an ultimate file in a specific location. So for example, my name is Pierre and I'm using Windows. So in my own local, there's a temporary file, temporary folder where it's going to be showing that some temporary files right here. Now there's some important temporary files if you want to go straight, and let me just show you here. If we want to go straight into this location, so it's C, where's that again? Let me minimize this. So C users and so on. So C users here at data local temp. So let me just go there, local, and then the bottom I'm gonna have a temp, and then Arduino build. Now the latest one is 35 something, so 35. Now right in here, you will see that ELF file. There's the hex file. Now if you've done some programming before, flashing firmware to AVR boards, the hex file is something you know. That's what gets flashed to with QMK. However, when we flash with our serial to our ErgoTravel, to our BlueMicro, it's actually the zip file that gets flashed. So let me minimize this and go back to my shared board here. So I'm not gonna go. Well, let's do that. Let's first flash the bootloader. Now the first thing that's gonna happen is this is a brand new J-Link. So I've installed the firmware, the software for the J-Link before, but the first time I actually connect it, what's gonna happen is, and I'm gonna pull a cable here. So this is the cable for it. The first time I'm gonna be using it is, it's probably gonna be complaining. Let me just start an application called J-Link Commander. And it's under Seger. So Seger, J-Link Commander. Now when I first have it, it actually automatically connects to the J-Link by the USB. And there's this pop-up that comes up. There's a new firmware available for the J-Link. Updating, do you want to do it? Yes, you want to do it. And what's going to happen is going to flash the firmware, and it's going to do its thing on here. That takes a bit of time, but there it is. Okay, I've got an error message here, but let's try that again. So let's close it and start it again. So J-Link Commander. So now I just started it, and actually it ran fine. So you can see this J-Link, the hardware version is version 7. Now this is a very old clone, like it's cloned for something very old. It's still gonna work. Now if you do see a message that comes up like this, a warning saying its proper operation is not guaranteed, it's defective, it probably will not work for all the functionality of the new functionality, but it works for what we need. So let's go like this. So now the first thing what we're going to do is going to go connect. Now the first time you run it, it's not going to have a chip that it's going to try to connect to. So what you need is essentially set the NRF52832_XXAA. That's for the chip type. So right now that's my default, so I'm going to select that. And then the target interface is SWD. So we're going to go S. And then there was a default speed, so I'm going to keep it at the default here. And then, well, it's not connected because it's not connected. So let's go and do that. So now I'm going to go, if you remember, brown, ground. I'm going to connect this here. On this side, yellow data. So yellow data, I'm going to flip it around. So I'm going to have a little twist just to get it to the other side. So now I'm going to just jam it, kind of like wedge it on the side for it to connect. So let's try that again. So connect. device, well, it tries to connect, but it cannot. That's because I have no power on here. The J-Link does not supply power. At least this J-Link does not supply power. So if I'm going to turn it on, I'm going to try connect again. Okay, so do I have my lines crossed over? So VCC, the CK, so it should be fine. So let's just do that. Close it off and start it again. So J-Link Commander. Okay, so let's go connect. That's good. And I've got my error message again, so let's close that off. SWD. Target speed, yes. And you can see now I've got a full connection, and I know my connection, my J-Link works properly. Now, if it's a brand new device, some of them are locked, and it's going to ask you, do you want to unlock it? And unlocking it essentially wipes the device clean. Just go ahead. We're going to flash the bootloader. So now I don't need that J-Link Commander anymore. So I'm going to close that. Now what I need is I want to go and flash my bootloader. So to do that, I go into my Arduino, make sure that it's my 832 Feather. The bootloader is only one for that version. Debug mode, I've got like full debug right now. Typically we just leave it at 0. Now my programmer for flashing the bootloader has to be the J-Link. This is what's connected right now. So we go J-Link, go Tools, and then Burn Bootloader. Just keep an eye on what's happening at the bottom. Parsing hex file, pushing everything, programming device, then run. That's it, it's done. So the bootloader has been flashed. Now I don't remember seeing if the light flashed or not, so let's try it again. Does it flash? Just keep an eye. So burn bootloader. There's a few flash, it turns off, and then goes back on. Okay, simple. Okay, so now we're done with flashing the bootloader. So now let's go and flash the software or the firmware. So what I need to do is go back to bootloader DFU for Bluefruit. That is essentially serial. Let's go that. Now we've got this, debug and so on. Now what I need to do is connect my, I'm going to unplug this. Now what I need to do is go and connect my serial adapter. So I'm going to go plug this. Now how do you figure out what serial port you're going to have? So what you're going to see is this is going to be plugged in. Now on the Arduino you're going to have the COM port showing up. Now what the COM port, how it shows up will varies depending if you've got a Mac, if you've got a PC, if you've got running on Linux. Ultimately that serial port is what you want to know. Okay, so just note it down, and that typically is going to remain the same for all your adapters. If you have multiple adapters, then it may kind of switch around, but typically if you only have one, that's the only one you have to remember. Okay, so now we've got the COM port selected. Now let's go and connect this. So I said ground to black. So ground to black. Now I'm going to go to my lines here in the middle, but I could go on the edge here. So let's go on the edge, there's like more room to play around. So I've got ground to black. Then I've got, let's just turn this around, RX, which is receive on this end, is my white. Now on this end, that means it must be transmit. So that means it's crossed over. So transmit, receive, ground. So now I've got my 3 lines connected here. And this is where the connector makes it a little bit more permanent. So I've got 3 lines here. Now, remember, you must apply power because you're not connecting your serial connector power to this. So this way, there's a voltage regulator here. There's a voltage regulator inside the serial chip. You don't want these two to try to regulate to a different voltage and essentially burn one and then the other, you don't know which one. So by only connecting the ground and then the actual data lines, you don't risk the chance of essentially having your voltage regulator competing. So now let's go and flash this. Okay, so let's flash this. So I've got my tools, I'm on my COM port. Now, I just flashed the bootloader here. So whenever I turn it on, remember it's going to be powered, so I just did a reset on here by turning it off and on again. It automatically, because there's no firmware, automatically is going to go in DFU mode and stay there. So that means if I start to flash, it's going to flash. So now I press the arrow for upload and it's going to recompile everything, link. Again, this is a normal flash process. You see it being sent. And device programmed. So we're set. Now remember, on here I've got the chip or program to be with the debug as well. Now let's have a look at the serial monitor. And it just went on here. So if I go with the serial monitor, as you can see here, there's a bunch of things and it's not connecting to anything. If I do reset on here, it's going to pass a lot of data and so on. Now let's go and see what our here it's doing. So let's go add a Bluetooth device, add it. It's going to look for it. ErgoTravel BLE left. So that's the left we just flashed, connecting. Done. Now let's go back to our serial lines here. Now I'm just going to go reset. There we go. So now it's not connected. Let's just double check here. See my ErgoTravel BLE connected. Now this is because it doesn't have its connection to the right hand side. It's not there yet. However, let's try something out. Let's go back to our notepad, delete all of this, and I can remove this because now I don't need my line. Now in my notepad, let's see if it works. QWIRT. Now this something else. Okay, I had a bunch of characters coming through. That's probably because I've got a lot of like serial data trying to push through. That's why going in debug 0 is good. Okay, so we know it works, but there's quite a bit of lag on here, which is not good. Okay, so we know it works from we're able to flash. Now, this was the first flash. Now, what about the second time I need to flash? Now, let's minimize this. Let's go back here. Okay, so let's replug on here. So again, I've got ground. And which one is it again? Goes into, so my receive is white. So receive goes to transmit here. So the second time you want to flash to your BlueMicro. Now, what happens? I do nothing. The program is running right now. If I go and flash, I'm going to get an error. It's compiling. It starts. It times out. It times out because the BlueMicro is not in DFU mode. So what I need to do is, if you look very carefully before it times out, I'm going to pull that up. It goes linking and then using the library, and then it says global variables, and then it sends the flash command that Adafruit and RFUTL. This is when you want to actually do a reset on your board for it to go into DFU for a second or so and then pick up the so let's do that. So two things. I need to press the button, it compiles, when it links, reset. So upload, push the reset, and as soon as you see you go back and it flashes. So let's do that again. So I compile on top here, press the reset, remove the reset as soon as I see the global variable. Sometimes the timing is not going to work out and you'll have to do it again a couple more times. Okay, so now I've flashed it again. Let's see if our computer still detects it. So now let's go and do to our here. Now what I see, it still says connected. Okay. Let's go and verify that. Go on here, clear all of that, and then go, yeah, it's still connected, it's still working. That's good. So let's go and turn it off and go and do the other side. So this one's done. Now let's go and do this one. So process is the same. We need to go through and let me minimize this. Let's go and flip this around. So now what we need is we go into our BlueMicro, into our Arduino, and then we look at the keyboard config. Now instead of taking left, we just go and take, the right hand side. So we got the left, got the right, so now I need to compile the right hand side. So I'm gonna go compile. It's gonna do its thing, it's linking, and it's all compiled. So now let's go back and then we're gonna go and flash the bootloader again, and then we're gonna flash the firmware. So let's go and do like this. So now we're gonna go and take our bootloader again. Where is it? There it is. So we need this. So we need to connect our J-Link. There it is. The light is on. So now remember, things were reversed. So now VCC is here, and then the I/O, which is a yellow, goes on the same side there. Okay, so now I've got this, and I'll need to turn this on. So I'll turn it on right now. So now I'm going to go again back to my programmer, J-Link, tools, just make sure that it's wedged in, burn bootloader, see at the bottom, programming device, we're done. Okay, so now I'm just gonna reset it. Now let's go and plug our serial lines. So serial again, so we've got black is our ground, and then receive is white. So black is our ground. White goes receive transmit, so remember, we're gonna cross over. Receive transmit. Okay. So now we're connected. Let's go to and flash this. I'm just holding on to this because it's somewhat loose. So again, we gotta go change the programmer to the bootloader DFU. That means serial. And then double check our COM port. We're good. And then now we're gonna go and just is it on? Yep, next to the dot. So flash. And it's doing its thing. You can see at the bottom, starting to send. It's sending. Done. So what I can do here is go back to my tools. It goes on serial monitor. So here's my serial monitor here. Okay, so I'm just going to reset it so you can actually see it happen. There we go. So because I'm in full debug mode, you can actually see this is my right hand side and what BSP would have, serial number of the chip, I guess, and then ErgoTravel BLE right. It's a peripheral, can only allow one connection, and then so on. So let's see if we can see it with our computer. Now, if I go add a device, Bluetooth, I don't see it. Although I know it's connected. Oh, there it is. It's coming up. So it just came up now. What I want to do is I want to show you that this is actually very different than a regular keyboard. Now, if I go on here, now this is on my phone where I've got an application called NRF Connect from Nordic. And then right in here, if I could just go refresh, I see that ErgoTravel. And then when I go and I actually see details here of what services are available. If I look carefully, there are no services regarding keyboards. Okay, so I haven't connected here, but I think right now actually it probably went to sleep. So if I just refresh the screen here, it's going to disappear. I'm going to wake it up. And actually, let's go to the serial monitor here. See at the bottom, not connected, sleep. After 30 seconds of not being connected, it goes to sleep. So I'm just going to wake it up. Just press a key. It wakes up again. And I can see right here it's going to show up again. Okay. Okay, so now let's go and bring our other side. So let's turn it on. Let's keep an eye on the serial. Turn it on. See, I've got a few things that came up saying it's got the connection. So that means that the left connects to the right. So let's go and check on that. So I've got the left that, and I'm gonna go and cancel on here. My ErgoTravel left is connected, and I can actually see also here that my right is connected. And if I go into my notepad, I'll show you here. So I've got my left connected. Let's just remove these wires here. And I'm going to have my right connected. So now I see I'm completely wireless between left and right. Now, the way I've programmed it is I've got my layers here, so I get my numbers. I get my numbers here, and I think I've got, where did I hide those? Oh yeah, I've got my function keys. Well, it won't have, like Notepad doesn't show function keys, but I've got my function keys hidden somewhere. We should look into the key map for that. But now I've actually fully tested and flashed my ErgoTravel with my firmware, with my key map, and that completes essentially setting up our ErgoTravel, setting up the programming, and a very brief overview of how to program. Now, on here, so because these two are connected, if I refresh, I will no longer see my right hand side is no longer broadcasting because it is connected to my left. Okay, so that completes things.